colonization like digital colonization and trade colonization, which are a threat to the world at large today, were discussed in the previous episodes of Logistically Speaking. Today, I will be discussing an allied concept which stands to threaten the sovereignty of nation, that is, logistical colonization. Though this sounds like a strange combination of words, logistical colonization is evolving into a new threat for nations. In today's episode, I will be talking about this phenomena and how it's changing the world order. Since time immemorial, it's always been an established fact that success in logistics can help win a war, or the lack of it will result in losing the war. Historical lessons like how Germany lost to Russia during World War II due to failure to logistically support their frontline soldiers during winter, or Alexander leaving his conquest midway and leaving India due to lack of logistic support that couldn't reach from his home country. This is one of the reasons world powers always try to establish support stations across the world. US was successful in this with NATO allies and established military stations in Atlantic and Pacific nations, and similarly USSR used to control the other half during the time of communist regime. All these powers conveniently extended financial support, military support and political support to their allied leaders to establish their stations across the world without taking the liabilities of colonies. Now, for an incumbent world power to establish something similar, they need to adopt a completely different approach. And this is where the Chinese strategy of logistics as a tool for colonization has come in place. Western colonization's development plan called as software investment of reforming policies and institutions to help their allies grow, whereas Chinese invested in hardware to develop infrastructure while pushing in private capital and debt. This scheme of building new rail, roads and port was projected as a path to peace, prosperity, innovation and building strategic connections. As per the Chinese government, this investment in logistics infrastructure was to help developing nations to speed up their development while preserving their independence. Here is why this was attractive. Number one on this list is the financial scale. China started implementing its infrastructure program called the Belt and Road Initiative, or BRI, 8 years back with the participation of around 140 countries. With more than $100 billion committed, every country from every corner of the globe was eager to get a share of the pie, especially the financially challenged countries. However, most of these loans for logistics projects were deployed as sovereign guaranteed loans to recipient countries. So, even though these do not seem like loan to the other country, the sovereign guarantee make this as a loan to the country itself. All the participating nations were shown the benefit of being connected with China, the factory of the world. The advantage of moving cargo from all the connecting nation to consuming countries further sweetened the deal. Number 3, the technological expertise. For successful implementation of connectivity, technology plays a major role in developing modern ports and faster railways. The advanced technology which China agreed to provide was something the participating countries never had. And number 4, the scale of projects. Most of these nations did not have the capability or capacity to develop something of this scale ever. China filled the gap with massive scale projects linking them to all the participating nations with rail, port and road projects. Well, like the saying goes, the devil is in the details. The implementation details is something we need to analyze to understand the hidden agenda of China's logistical colonization. And number 1 on this list is the scale of loan. According to Kiel's Institute's World Economic Report, in 17 years starting from 2000, the world debt obligation to China went up from $500 billion to $5 trillion. That is 6% of the world's economic output, or which is the same as India's GDP target for 2025. As of now, Chinese direct loans to around 150 nations add up to 1.5 trillion in addition to some 200 billion unreported loans. This is more than IMF and World Bank combined loans. The rest of the loan is by way of logistic project financing through JV companies with sovereign guarantee of recipient nations. All the BRI projects in participating nations were heavily overpriced, which made this financially unviable, ensuring the recipient countries would never make enough money to pay back the debt. And number 3 is the quantum of loan. The amount of loan each country took, which when we take as a percentage of the GDP of nations, is unbelievably high. You can see the list from the screen where Lagos is the highest and the percentage is high is for all others too. Even our neighboring country Sri Lanka have incurred Chinese loan equivalent to 12% of their GDP. Number 4. China acted as a loan shark. Many of these nations which couldn't pay back the loans were forced to hand over the projects to China, similar to how loan sharks would operate when you default on the EMI of your vehicle or property. We are witnessing this in our neighboring country Sri Lanka, where they are being forced to hand over the new port to China. And number 5, unfair and unethical influencing. The impossible task of paying back loan resulted in the handing over of vital infrastructure to China, which is now being used as a Chinese military station that influence and controlling the running of these nations. Well, the further expansion of the BRI project seems to be getting tough as all the recipient nations and world powers have started waking up to the threat. However, significant damage has already been done and only time will tell whether the world order will be back to earlier days or the slow change world order will rise its head. Thank you for watching this episode of Logistically Speaking. If you would like to stay updated on interesting topics and discussions about the logistics industry, subscribe to our YouTube channel. I will be back next week with a new topic. Till then, see you. Bye-bye.